Hello and welcome to the Happy, Healthy, Strong podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to helping you live a happier, healthier, and stronger life. Building a life that you love starts with you owning your health and intentionally creating the best version of yourself. So if you're looking to better understand how proper nutrition, daily movement, mindset work, and strength training can help you create a life full of happiness and health, then you are in the right place. I generally hope that the tips, tricks, and information that we share will be the catalyst for change. I'm your host, Adam Lane. It's time to dive in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Happy, Healthy, Strong podcast. I'm your host, Adam Lane. With me today from beautiful, rural Pennsylvania, Mr. Derrick Ball from Ballistic. I emphasize that too much, way too much, from Ballistic Performance. Derrick, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here, happy to talk and talk shop, bullshit a little bit. So I'm looking forward to it. And I'm glad you emphasized it because that's the only reason that it is our name. That name has nothing to do with our training methodology, nothing to do with, a backstory on Ashley and I and how we met or how we train. It's specifically because I was 20 years old and thought that would be awesome if I had a business with my name in it. And Ballistic was the only word that had B-A-L-L at the beginning, and the rest is history.
And here you go.
Yeah.
But Ballistic, not ballistic.
Yeah. We don't emphasize it in the marketing, but I like that. The original iteration of the logo back when I was doing it. This is when I was a strength coach at Pitt. I remember all my spare time I was messing around on my computer, and I didn't know anything about graphic design at the time. I've come a long way since then. But the original iteration was just like bold, B-A-L-L, and then like italicized I-S-T-I-C. And I was like, all right, that looks good. We'll roll with that. And thank God we didn't go with that permanently. But yeah, it's good.
Look how far you've come.
Come a long way.
Jeez.
Still got a long way to go, though.
Yeah. We all do. Derrick, for the tens of people that listen to the show who might not know who you are and why you're such a big deal, tell our people who you are and why you're such a big deal.
Sure thing. First, you got to give yourself a little more credit than tens of people. I caught that there instead of thousands or hundreds.
12s of people? I don't know.
But so quick backstory. I went to school for exercise science for my undergrad, graduated, and right at the end toward graduation, I reached out to Reebok CrossFit One, which at the time was in Canton, Massachusetts. It was sort of the pinnacle of, or at least I viewed it as the pinnacle of somewhere to coach or to learn how to be a coach. And
yeah, because who was coaching there at the time?
At the time, they were stacked. It was Austin Paliolo, Spencer Hendel, Jared Davis, Matt Della Valle came in shortly after that, John Main, Megan Burns, Joe Maisley. It was just a group of coaches that, obviously at the time I had just got into CrossFit. I've been doing it for maybe 2 years. And so I knew Denise Thomas was there. I knew some of those names, but I didn't know everyone. And I knew I wanted to be around those people. So I emailed Jared Davis, and there were no positions posted. I just said, hey, I'll come work for free. I'll be an intern. And didn't hear back for 6 weeks. So I went on, booked other things, had other internships, did some med school applications. Then Jared finally emails me back out of the blue, says he'll do an interview if I drive to Boston that weekend. So hopped in the car, went to Boston, interviewed, got it. And that was really the catalyst to coaching. And so moved to Boston. I started coaching CrossFit. Eventually, I moved all over the country. I moved to Virginia Beach, then down to the Caribbean, came back. And so I really was just chasing positions, right? Like I was just anywhere I could go and coach CrossFit, I wanted to do it.
Where'd you go in the Caribbean?
So I went to St. Thomas. So I moved there on a whim, just decided, hey, I'm going to leave my job that I was coaching at in New Jersey. Owner and I did not see eye to eye on essentially anything. So I was 24 years old, moved there, ended up running the CrossFit gym. There's only one on the island, but started running that, did that for about a year. It was amazing. One of the coolest experiences of my life. We got to meet some awesome people there as well. Connor Murphy, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was a kind of back and forth down there. And so we crossed paths, and we actually ended up trading spots at one point. And so just a cool experience. And that led me to grad school. In grad school, I did my master's in health and physical activity, or was it health and fitness? Something like that. And that was a year-long program, met my wife there. And through that opportunity, I got to be a strength coach at Pitt. I worked with men's and women's soccer, women's volleyball, and swimming and diving. Those were my primary teams. Again, another insane, amazing experience. I always tell everyone D1 is not what everyone thinks it is. So you kind of get there and think you made it and realize that that's not the place you want to be. At least most people do. And then that led me to, coaching some more privately, and ultimately Ash and I starting Ballistic. So that was like a long-winded answer to say that across a ton of different fitness arenas and modalities and levels of business, I was able to garner a ton of experience and be around some incredible people that helped set me up to be able to then create my own brand, and have Ash obviously come on board and really help me bring it to life. And so now we run Ballistic Performance, which is online fitness and nutrition coaching, targeted toward primarily people who are ready to exit CrossFit or who have already quit CrossFit, and help them stay fit and healthy, after CrossFit. Because I feel there are a lot of people in that realm, even though a lot of CrossFitters will argue against that. There are plenty who will say that they are right there with us. And we've been doing that now for almost 5 years.
To be totally clear, so we're, Oak Strength started as CrossFit Roscoe. We held a CrossFit, affiliation for 8 years. Stopped it 4 years ago. I have no ill will towards CrossFit. I know where they're going. I like a lot of the methodology. I disagree with some of the methodology. I also think it depends on who you are and what you're trying to do, what your goals are in the world of like what you need to do. Transparency, total transparency. That's what I was trying to think. Gosh,
got it.
Bring him back to okay. There, but so I've no ill will towards CrossFit. We don't do CrossFit anymore. We used to. We did, no more. So it's interesting that, because I've been following you guys for a while, and back in the day, I saw lots of CrossFit stuff, and now it's you've kind of turned the page here, which is interesting to me. Who comes to you when you talk about people who want to leave CrossFit, or have left CrossFit, or don't know that they need to leave CrossFit? Like, who are you looking at here? What are these people? Who are these people? I don't want to say CrossFit is bad, but I might say that it's bad for certain people at certain times. So I'm curious to know your experience with it, because this is your niche.
Yeah, for sure. So, in the beginning, obviously, when you're starting any business, we didn't really know who we were targeting. Maybe we should have had a better idea, but a lot of our initial clientele were people who we had trained in CrossFit gyms, right? So that had been around CrossFit anywhere from 6 months to 6 years, depending on the location. And it really came to having that relationship with those folks to just get them to buy into the fact that what we were doing was a little bit different, right? So it started with people who had trust in us as their coach, as a professional in the field, to venture out of CrossFit and try something different, just because they liked our personalities, liked our coaching style, et cetera. Then as the brands evolved, we definitely, and especially in the last 6 months, even very recent, we've realized that if we truly want to dive in and work with the folks who, as I mentioned, are ready to leave or have already left, then that's who we really need to start talking to in our content and all the media that we put out. And so now a lot of people that are coming to us have had very similar experience to our personal experience, where we were die hard. I mean, drinking the Kool-Aid as much as we could, tracking.
Best brand time. Go.
Yeah. Like anything that you could possibly imagine a stereotypical CrossFitter did, we did that. And then took it, above and beyond, because it was also our profession, our career.
Yep.
And so a lot of folks who are coming to us, they're sharing those similar experiences of, I was addicted, I was a fanatic. Over time, it's broken me down, worn me out, because
sounds like an addiction. Oh my gosh.
It truly is an addiction.
I always think about it. I twitch when I take a day off. And
yeah. And so they're coming to us because they're either beat up and broken, or it's kind of stale now. They're tired of the same old thing, like we kind of talked about before we went live, of the typical CrossFit couplet triplet. And they're also, a lot of them are transitioning into, or have already transitioned into, a new phase of life or a new chapter, which would be parenthood. Because to your point of your facility having members who have aged as the
Yep.
as the facility has aged, they've gone from 20 to 30 to now 30 to 40. Same thing happens with a lot of folks who are coming to us, where it was cool to beat the hell out of yourself and have fun and spend all that time in the gym when you're 20 and had no responsibility. But it's not so cool when you feel like shit, have no energy because you're up with the kids, have to go to extracurriculars after, school, or depending on what your kids are. And so they're looking for something else that's more conducive to their goals and more conducive to their lifestyle, because having kids is a huge shift. And,
Yeah.
it's something that is difficult to transition through.
Yeah. And it makes me think of our mutual friend Stu Brower in the way, he always talked about convenience with people. And like, I know we have, a very nice lady in the gym who is fantastic. She is great, but her kids do jujitsu next door. And I know that's why she's here right now. And I, I kind of know that if her kids ever stop doing jujitsu, we might stop seeing her because she's got 3 kids and she's busy and I totally understand. I'm not upset about it. I'm not like that convenience piece of where you are. You can write the most amazing program for so and so, but like if they don't have the time or location or whatever it is, the bandwidth in their world to get it done, because work is extremely stressful, kids are extremely stressful, kids are keeping you up at night, work is keeping you up at night, something that's like where the moons are not aligning. And then you're like, well, now go beat the crap out of yourself with this killer workout. And dude, I'm with you. Back in the day, back when I was, 20 something and, 30 something, and I was doing these absolutely, I did the same thing with triathlon. Like I did a bunch of sprint triathlons. I felt really good about myself. So what did I do? Olympic distance triathlons. And I felt really good about myself. What did I do? Some half Ironmans. What did I do? I did a full Ironman, and just kept going up because like I wanted to do these crazy ass workouts. A lot of times they helped because, holy cow, when I was 24 and I did one workout where I ran 5 miles, got home, threw my, helmet and sunglasses on, took off 25-mile loop on the bike, came back, ran another 5, another 25-mile loop on the bike. I did that X amount of times. Anyway, I finished the day with 25 miles of running and 100 miles of biking. And like, but I was single. I was 24. Like, I literally got home that night. The bag of like Ruffles potato chips with all the literally devoured the entire thing. Like that's how sodium deprived I was. We didn't have element salts back in the day.
Yeah.
Maybe some Gatorade and stuff like that. But oh my gosh. But like it was fun then. It was cool then. And I think it's a hard thing for people, especially like hard chargers, people that like, man, they had it, they were going there, and then things change, their bodies change, priorities change, which they should. Like you have kids, stuff like that, they should change. And now like, but it's hard to kind of swallow that pill. Maybe my workouts need to change. However, I'm going to assume this, not completely knowing your program, what you guys propose in the way of these people post CrossFit, I'm assuming it's not just this candy ass little, soft program, oh, just take 10-pound dumbbells and, do some presses and then go home. No, like so once you get these people, what are your recommendations for the busy adult who's got lots of plates spinning and they're just trying to be happy, healthy, and strong?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think just to kind of lead into it, to backtrack a little, to go back to your point of like no ill will towards CrossFit, that's one thing I always try to make clear. And obviously in content creation, you want to be somewhat, let's say, agitating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You want to create some kind of not disagreement, but I want 51% of people to agree and 49% of people to hate me.
Yep.
And the only way you can achieve that is if you kind of draw a line in the sand.
Yep.
And when you draw that line, of course, everyone has something to say about it. And I am constantly reinforcing the fact that I don't hate CrossFit. I loved it at one point. I think 18, 20, early, mid 20-year-olds should do it. I think it's a great way to learn kinesthetic awareness, to elevate your fitness, to build a hedge of your health and fitness that you can use as a defense as you continue to age. I think all that stuff is great. Just as what I said earlier, there becomes a point where I think everyone evolves beyond it, and that's who we're speaking to. So when we do speak to those individuals, a lot of times they're already so beat up and broken that it doesn't take a lot of convincing of, hey, our program isn't going to make you soft. It's not going to decrease your fitness. You're not going to lose your physique, anything like that. They're truly looking for a solution to the problem. And our solution to it, step one, is making it as simple as possible, right? Even before we talk about training, it's, are you hitting like these foundational pillars of fitness that are going to ensure that you can stay fit and healthy through whatever season of life you're in. And those are the basics that we all know of: sleep 7 to 9 hours, drink half your body weight in ounces of water, or whatever recommendation you want to give for hydration, walk 8 to 10,000 steps a day. The things that have been proven time and time and again in research to decrease your risk of all-cause mortality, those are the things that you need to prioritize first. And then if we can get a handle on all that, then it's a matter of, okay, here's the training program, and this is what we believe. And for us, what we believe is interval-based strength and conditioning. So everything we do is on a clock, because it's a way to keep yourself efficient in the gym. Because we all know how it goes. Obviously, you can't be texting in CrossFit, but you can easily get in there and bullshit for 10 to 15 minutes beforehand, 10 to 15, 20 minutes afterwards. And then you're losing more time, which, as you become a parent and as you become higher up in your career and move into these different phases of life, time becomes more and more valuable. And so that's our biggest belief, is interval-based strength and conditioning. So what that means is, when you're doing your lifts, because we have days where we lift and days where we condition.
So Murph for time every day. That's what you're saying. Murph for time. How many Murphs can you do?
Racing the clock. Now, one thing I always say is we're not working against the clock. We're working with it now. So we're not trying to beat the clock anymore. We're using the clock to our advantage. And so every set we do is on an interval. And the reason it's on an interval is, one, it keeps you focused. And then two, it ensures that you're working for the amount of time I want you to work. And what's left is the amount of time that I intended for you to rest. And that can keep you flowing through the whole session. And then on our conditioning days, it's the same concept. Whatever the format is, it's still interval based, to where we've done the math ahead of time. And we're saying, okay, this is when you should finish the round. This is how much time you should have to rest in between. This is the prescribed intensity that you should be training at. All of those different factors. So we're just essentially taking the holes that we believe to be in CrossFit programming and filling them in with proven training concepts, and then eliminating a lot of the stuff that, as you get into your 30s and 40s, you probably don't need to live a fit and like healthy and functional life, right? Yeah. Like, you don't need to do a muscle up. You don't need to walk on your hands. All that shit looks cool and sexy for Instagram, but can you be a super fit parent and outlast your kids in anything they do and still look like a badass to all the other dads out there or moms? Absolutely. And you don't have to do any of that complicated shit.
That's a part of CrossFit that bothers me. That scares me a little bit, where as people get more into it and they thought, oh, well, man, I did a ring muscle up 3 years ago. Let's try one today. Wait, time out. let's slow down a little bit, because, you watch a, arm slip out. Now, the idea of ring muscle up, the idea of pulling so deep into your armpit, that vertical pull so deep that you're able to, flip it over and turn into a dip is great. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, outside of, if you do it poorly, then you can have issues. And so, dude, I love how everything's on a clock, because I think that's, again, the clock working with you versus against you. I really like these time-based. We do a lot in the way of our conditioning stuff, similar to you. We do a lot of time-based stuff, because if I just want people to work for 15 minutes, I want them to work for 15 minutes. If John decides to go a little heavier, and he goes heavier with the weights that he's chosen for blank movements, and he takes a few more breaks, that's fine. I don't care. If Joni goes a little bit lighter and she stays I kind of don't care there. But at the end of 15 minutes, hey, we're all done, and hey, we're moving on, to the next thing, or whatever it might be. Or if it's intervals, we break at the same time, or whatever it is, as opposed to, hey, we're counting reps and somebody grab whatever weight, and, or maybe they're just having a super crappy day. And the idea of doing 50 reps of blankety blank turns into triple the amount of time that it should have. And now all of a sudden they just destroyed themselves, already on a day where they were feeling like absolute garbage. And now we just drove them into injury, sickness. don't want to say depression, but like if you don't feel good, like everything's bad. Like it, I don't know. My wife had a pinched nerve in her shoulder last year, had surgery on it. And before that, we just thought she like slept wrong, something. But like, no offense to her, like she got snippy, like, but she was in pain.
Oh, you're in trouble now. When this episode airs, you're done.
Let's be clear, Derrick. My wife did not listen to this podcast.
Well, that's good.
There's no like, hey, did you listen to that recent? No, didn't quite get to it. No, I mean, I say so many smart things at home. There's no reason. She just stops and writes them down as a, could you repeat that one more time? You know?
Right.
No, but it's such a thing where like again, people change as they get older, and you can do smart, progressive things. You can continue to get stronger and continue to hold muscle mass, as you get older. But it's probably going to have to be in a different way than what you did, when you were 20 something. And it's interesting.
I think to your point too, and this is something we highlight all the time, is as you age, you're progressing in all these different areas of life: parenthood, career, other responsibilities and obligations, your relationships, whatever. All of that is added stress to the bucket, because if we really only have one bucket, right, and we're continuing to pour more and more into it. I always joke with my wife that somebody should have warned us that becoming a parent is just continuing to overload your plate and pretending like you're okay, right? Like you're adding more and more to it, more and more kids, more and more sports, more and whatever, and you just keep pretending like you got it. So you're pouring all that stress into the bucket, and everyone loves to claim that fitness, whether it's CrossFit, Orange Theory, resistance training, whatever, that's their quote stress relief. And anyone who knows the industry, knows the research, knows the physiology, knows that that's not true, and that is also added stress. So if your bucket's already full, and then you're going in and doing a 30-minute AMRAP of box jumps, running and whatnot, that's just causing it to overflow, and that's going to lead to long-term issues if you chronically engage in that sort of behavior. And now that won't happen to everybody, but you can't deny the fact that that level of intensity continuously or chronically isn't adding stress to your body. Your body's that's not positive stress. That's not eustress. That is stress that's causing you to physiologically break down. That's why we train, is to recover. Yeah. And so, it's one of those points that we like to highlight anytime we're speaking to anybody about the program. Especially, we get a lot of folks who love to claim that, whether it's on Instagram or on a call, that it sounds like watered down CrossFit, or what we do is just watered down CrossFit. And again, it couldn't be further from the truth. I tell everyone, aside from mixed modal conditioning, which nearly everyone is doing mixed modal conditioning now. Oh. Like no one is just getting on the treadmill for 40 minutes, aside from bodybuilders and walking. Very few people are doing that as their quote cardio. Maybe they'll do it on occasion. I do that every now and then with a ruck, but very few people are just doing long, slow distance, cyclical, repetitive exercise. Everyone's doing mixed modal conditioning. And so we utilize that as well. But then we have 3 days a week or 2 days a week, depending on the program, that are just straight resistance training. Yeah. And if that ever happens in a CrossFit gym, invite me, and I will happily come down and take a look, because I don't believe you for a second that that's consistent in your gym.
And even if it does, like we've had strength training be a pillar, for a while, but not nearly to the extent as what it is now. But we used to like half-ass it in a way where, hey, build up to a heavy 3-rep max, done, 25-minute AMRAP. Right. Like, yeah. Damn it, Adam, I screwed up that whole and then watch our people not get stronger, because we're just beating the tar out of them with whatever that AMRAP afterwards and stuff like that. Again, and you and I are talking here. We're not saying conditioning is bad. Like it's not what we're saying. To go out there and I'm addicted to rucking. I'm not sure if you got anything from Go Ruck off the 4th of July sale, but it's my favorite time of year. I just got, because my other bag, a non-Go Ruck bag, broke, but I got a new GR2. I'm very excited. Very excited about this. This is the first day I brought it to the gym. I'm very thrilled. There's no weight in it. Had my laptop, but man, it's but between that, your runners, again, going from the triathlon world and stuff like that to go out run, yay, running's fine. A lot of people don't do it well. They don't have form with running. They end up hurting themselves. I kind of believe there's form in everything. I don't care if you're deadlifting or squatting or snatching or running. Like there's how you need, there's posture and position, and you should slowly build into things, and you should be, thoughtful with how it is, as opposed to, oh man, I'm 40 pounds overweight. I'm going to go for a run. Here we go. And that's, great way for people to get hurt and whatnot. So Derrick, I don't know where I was going with this. I just went rambling there.
No, you're good. There's a reason that really smart people like Kelly Starrett write books on how to run, right? Because it's a thing. You need to know the technique.
Yeah.
But
which is funny, because I come from the track and field background, cross country background, not doing it myself, coaching it, because when I taught, we needed a track coach, and they're like, Adam, would you like to coach track? I'm like, I've never done track. They're like, well, do you want a job? Yes, I would like a job. I would love to coach track. Yes, it sounds amazing. That's really the only reason I got my first teaching job was we'd like to offer you this job, but we need you to coach. And
I'll take it.
Why not? But it's funny. You go to track meets, you go to cross country meets, coaches there, and this is just to the point of running, are there writing down splits and just yelling like cheerleaders. Go, Jenny, go. Come on, Ryan, push harder. Like literally, it could be my mom out there saying these words, and it would have the same, they'd be the same words. Like it's not actually anything in the way of like critiquing their form. Hey, shorten up the stride a little bit. Hey, more ball of foot. Hey, you gotta be quicker. Something where you're actually, versus basketball. When I coached basketball, if somebody shot and it was like, hey, actually hold your follow through, kiddo. Like, what are you doing? Like you just, that thing, like the ball didn't rotate at all. But you like coach the form in anything. And I feel like in everything except running, where it's just this, sorry, I don't mean to bash on running. I love running. I think you should do it. And I think you should do it well. Yeah. If you can't do it well, you shouldn't do it, because you shouldn't do anything not well.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Hopefully people are taking that away too. Like to your point, we're not bad. I think everyone needs a condition. I think most people need to spend the majority of their time at lower intensity, more in that, like what everyone's talking about now, zone 2, right? Which zone 2 is great, but it's definitely getting hammered right now across the industry. But yeah, most people do need to spend more time in zone 2 and engage in that sort of exercise versus the conditioning and high intensity. Their quality of life and their health markers will get significantly better if they do that. But yeah, and to your point about running and technique, it's that way with everything, right? There should be coaching across all these different modalities. I mean, look at Shane. I can't think of his last name right now. Shane with Dark Horse Rowing, right? He created an entire brand around the ski erg and the row, and he makes.
Who would have thunk?
Yeah, he's talking about technique that you and I might think is pretty basic and easy, and he's taken it to the 10th degree, and same with Chris Henshaw and what he's done with aerobic capacity. And there's a lot of nuance to these things that the general person probably doesn't need to know, but if someone's doing it consistently and engaging in it to progress or engaging in it to compete, then those nuances need to be addressed, obviously, and incorporated into their program and in their coaching. But yeah, it's definitely not bashing conditioning. You need it.
100%. Well, here, Derrick, I don't want you to give away the farm here, but like, depending on like where people are within their world here, because I definitely think there's a difference. I mean, we were 30. How old was I? 32. How old's my kid? 42. I was 32 when our first kid was born. 35 when our second kid was born. We were kind of older, because let's be clear, I was not ready for kids before that. I kind of see there being levels of things there. You have that like early 30s person whose job or family or life has just gotten more serious, and they have time to put into their health and fitness, but like it's not like it was back in their 20s when they had nothing to do and they could sleep through the weekend and party all the weekend and wake up and feel amazing. I barely remember those days. I call it college. I barely remember those days. But then I see people after that, I'm talking like more the 40s, where kids are more grown, but like it's still, I mean, my kids are 11 and 9, and you would think it'd be easier. We're running them around to 14 different practices of different things, and we try not to be crazy with it. I want my kids to be active and stuff like that, but we're not, we're not driving across country for 9-year-old baseball tournaments or stuff like that. We stayed local, but there's still stuff. And there's 2 kids and 2 parents. We're playing man-to-man defense. It's still, but like, it's tiring. It's still, and there are days where, like, owning a gym, you think I'd be in here lifting all the time. And there are days I don't do any of that. But then all of a sudden you see, like, I'm going to put like version 3 here, you hit your 50s and like the body is different. Like, you are older. We're probably on the backside of the hill, coming down the mountain type of thing. And things are definitely different. In the way of, do you have different programs that address kind of those different deals, or do you just kind of turn the heat up, turn the heat down, depending on kind of where people are within their
so that's a good question. We don't necessarily have programs based on age. What we do try to incorporate is different frequencies, like for various programs. So a lot of our programs are 5 days a week, in which there are a day or two that's optional out of that 5. We have some programs that are 4 days a week. We have one that's 3. And so we try to just base it on where you're at in terms of bandwidth for time, energy, effort. What can you invest now? Because all of our programs are structured in a way that there's a lot of progression and periodization within the 52-week plan, because all of our programs are written out as 52-week plans. So everybody starts at day 1. And the reason they're done that way is, even if you're fit and you've been doing CrossFit for 10 years and decide to quit, you probably really are lacking in one of those areas that we're prioritizing in a particular mesocycle, whether it's muscular endurance, strength, whatever it may be, hypertrophy. And even if you are very well balanced, doing a mesocycle of strictly muscular endurance, where you're doing 2 sets of 20 or 3 sets of 15 or an 18, 15, 12 descending rep scheme, that is going to kick your ass just as much as any of the other phases of the program. So everyone starts on day 1 and then they progress through. And throughout that time, they'll likely reach a point where the progression is exceeding their ability, whether that's due to age, injury, limitation. And at that point, that's where we can start to utilize modifications and substitutions and things like that to make sure they can continue forward. But for the most part, even though your body's definitely changing from a physiologic standpoint as you continue to age, a lot of our programs, they can follow through to that, finding that threshold or that cutoff point. And then from there, they can message us anytime they need for additional guidance and feedback through the app. And so we kind of address those situations as they present themselves. But I think one thing along this topic that's really interesting is, and I can't remember the title of the paper or the authors, but there was just a recent research article that actually showed people in their 60s were still able to build lean mass or lean muscle and generate increases in strength, even though they're 60, 62, 64 years old, with consistent and regimented resistance training, and then ensuring that I think it was also protein consumption as well was addressed in the study. I'd have to look it up, so no one quote me on that. But it was a really interesting study, because I feel like a lot of people hit 60 or even their mid 50s and kind of chalk it up like, we're done. And even a lot of coaches will say like, oh, we're not really going to build any muscle now, which may be true. But now we're finding out that, hey, it's definitely feasible depending on the type of program you follow, the nutrition. Obviously, things have to be adjusted. But yeah, we personally train out of our garage. We have a full gym built out there. And we do a lot of personal training out there with nearly everyone in that category of 55 to 65. So we deal with a lot of that population one-on-one in person versus our online crew tends to be a little bit younger. But we utilize the same concepts out there in the gym that we do online with our clients, and we still see a ton of progress, still see a lot of results. And yeah, I guess that's a long-winded answer to say, no, we don't base on age, but we can modify as needed as those instances occur.
Yeah. And I guess I wasn't completely, when you go from 39 to 40, you have to completely turn the page, because but it's interesting to see how just like circles of life. And that totally makes sense, because if you have somebody who's been training for 20 years, and they're 40 versus somebody who's been training for 2 years and they're 40, those are 2 completely different people. You need to attack them in very different ways. And yeah. You hit something that I think it's funny how we live in this time of Ozempic and all these other little quick fixes of all this stuff. And just just the idea of if you could train 2 days a week, 50 weeks a year for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, like you're probably going to do really, really well in your latter part of life. And God, it's so frustrating to see people, jump to here and jump to here and jump to here and jump to here and just keep fitness jumping. And, there are a bunch of different sexy, and as long as people are active, like I support that and stuff like that. I'm not saying you have to like do official gym and stuff like that. Obviously, if they do an online program, they have to use you, duh. But like, if people are active on their, but like that consistency piece is so underrated for people. And so for you to say, hey, we have this 52-week program, like here it is, we need you to be active the whole next year. Like this is how this works. If you want results, it can't be, I do this for 3 weeks, take 2 weeks off. I do it for another 2 weeks. I take 1 week off. I do it for 5 weeks, take 3 weeks off. Like there's no consistency in that. You're going to take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back all the time. And then you're going to look back, a year or 2, 3, 4 now, and you'll be like, I'm in the exact same spot, if not worse off, because you're metabolically just jacked up because you take 3 weeks off and then you try to jumpstart it and just dive right back in with some killer workout that you used to be able to do back in your 20s. And you're like, man. And then it damn near kills you. And here you are.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's interesting because I think about this a lot, and you can't, I'm sure you could. I would love to create a program around building a hedge of health and fitness in your late teens, early 20s, and then following those same people all the way through into their 30s and 40s, because the folks who are training consistently and diligently in their early 20s, they're building such a hedge against all of the negatives that are associated with age, that when they do get to these busier seasons of life and these more demanding times, and they have to take their frequency way down, or they end up completely missing training and taking weeks off at a time for, whatever reason, they're able to bounce back significantly quicker. And I don't know if I hate the term bounce back, but you get my point. They're able to get back into things faster and not have as detrimental of an effect from ceasing training because they built that hedge. Whereas anyone who wasn't putting that work in the beginning, and then they take that time off and they're inconsistent throughout their early 30s into their 40s, it's significantly harder and significantly more detrimental when they're not able to stick with it. That's one thing that I've been talking about a lot with our content, or in our content, is ever since we had our second kid, I'm lucky if I train 3 days a week. If I train 3 days a week, I'm like, dude, I fucking crushed, man. Like, I did it, And one of those sessions is probably like low intensity conditioning. And I'm still thinking, yeah, dude, I crushed it. The last 2 weeks are actually the first time in probably 6 months that I've trained more than 3 days a week for 2 weeks straight, but I'm at a position where I was fortunate enough to have put in that work. And now 2 days a week is enough for me to maintain everything that I built in my early 20s. Whereas if I hadn't put that time in, 2 days a week is still better than nothing, but it's not maintaining what I've had. I'm trying to work against the negative health outcomes that are already impacting me.
Yeah. And I don't remember, I recently read a study in regards to the like stimulus that you need in which to maintain muscle mass. And it was so low. It was like something like one full body workout every 2 weeks, something like that, was enough to like, keep the glutes the same, keep the shoulders at like fire everything up and be like, okay, keep it going. But like, you didn't need much. Maybe it was once every 10 days or something like that. It was 10 or 14 days. I can't remember, but something like that. And you look at it going, holy cow. But to your point, if you're able to create that buffer, create that hedge, of like, be active, be active, be active, be active. And then you hit these busy times in your life and maybe you do work out just once a week. That's amazing. That's fantastic. Hey, we're maintaining. And then you're able to maintain through the storm, whether it be work storm, family storm, whatever this tough time in your life is. Hey, I'm trying to get promoted at work and gosh, I got to put in some extra hours, blah, 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 blah. Hey, it's a tough time, but if you're able to keep that 1 day a week, 2 days a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever it is, gosh, you can, and then once life calms down, which I don't know if life ever does calm down. I keep telling myself when life calms down, and here we are, that, now once that's over, you haven't really lost anything. You're not, but if you do nothing for 3 years and then try to get back to it, oh boy, it's
hard.
I don't want to say it's hard.
It's really hard. Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, we tell people that all the time. It's something that we've been thinking about personally all the time. But it's hard to get a lot of people in that mindset, right? Especially to catch them as early as we're talking in your early 20s. A lot of people don't give a damn about their health in their early 20s. Think back to college, and you're not necessarily too concerned about your health. And but even if you can catch somebody in their 30s and their 40s, there's still a lot of ground that you can cover and a lot of improvement that can be made. And I work with a 65-year-old guy here at the house, and when he came to me, I mean, he was the definition of decrepitude, right? Like couldn't, and I, like, he would vouch for himself, right? He couldn't bend over to pick anything up without just, like keeping his torso perfectly vertical and just like Oompa Loompa style all the way to the ground. Couldn't squat for a damn, couldn't do anything physically.
Oompa Loompa style.
Yeah. His body was just broken. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking couldn't even RDL with a PVC pipe because it would put him in pain. And
Wow.
a lot of people at that point would write themselves off as like, I'm cooked, I'm done. I'm 65. Like, this is just how it is. And fortunately, he didn't have that mindset. And now the progress we've been able to make in 6 months working together is insane. I always tell him, I'm like, if I should have just taken one video you on day one. Like, I didn't want to, because it probably would have been embarrassing and hurt him mentally. But I should have taken a video of him, because I do with a lot of our clients, because now the things he's capable of doing it would blow a lot of people's minds. And that's possible with a lot of people in that age bracket. Like, they can make significant improvements in their quality of life just through consistent resistance training.
Yeah. And simple stuff too. It's not like, I think I'll put my parents in this category. They're 75, and the idea of like, I'm going to take this dumbbell or this barbell and like, just, I think scares the heck out of them. But to your point, it doesn't have to be crazy stuff, that, we're not trying to single arm dumbbell snatch, and we don't need to wall ball, a 75-year-old. There are some very much more simpler things that you can do, even if range of motion isn't perfect, because you're a little like oh my gosh, you made an Oompa Loompa joke. I was going to make a Wizard of Oz joke. Tin Man joke. There we go. Locked up like the Tin Man. Gosh, Derrick, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm usually much quicker.
You got to be sharper, man. You got to.
Yeah. Jeez. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting old, obviously. There we go. Tin Man, and then transparency. These are hard, full transparency. Yeah. But no, I appreciate what you guys are doing, because like it shouldn't be scary for people. And regardless of where you are, there's always that option for people. There's always this movement option. It doesn't matter where you start with what you're doing. And I don't know, this is where it just gets really personal and stuff, because you see people, like, again, as my parents get older, it's like, oh, kind of hard. And I, to be clear, I'm kind of a good resource when it comes to some of this stuff, but they kind of push back. I'm like, oh man, if we could just, but like they have to want it, type of thing too. And they're not terrible. They're relatively active for 75-year-old people, but yeah, at some point it catches up to you. And man, if you can stay ahead of it, you can hedge ahead of it, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. And well, the cool thing is too, if you can get people to buy in like that and to realize they should, and they also want to do it, when they start to see those improvements, and this is something CrossFit talks about all the time too, right? Like, when people start to see progress, it provides motivation. Same thing when you're not doing it. It's in any kind of fitness or any kind of sport, or really any endeavor whatsoever. When you see progress, it's motivating. I had that 65-year-old couldn't bend over to tie his shoe, and he jumped onto a 26-inch box this morning. And so it's like, if someone can do that in 6 months, like, I didn't tell him to do that. We progressed to it over the last 6 months, and he wanted to do it this morning just to say that he had the ability, because it gets them fired up to see, like, oh, my life wasn't over. I can do all these things that I probably haven't done since I was in high school. I'm still capable. It just requires work. And And that's where too, they see the ROI of consistency and a little bit of redundancy, which, you don't get that redundancy in CrossFit as often. But of course, if someone's deconditioned and they do all the variants, they're still going to see that progress. But yeah, it's just cool to see, and what you can still accomplish without the intensity, and regardless of age, there's still room to maneuver there, and yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, 100%. Derrick, what did we miss? What do you wish I would have asked you that I didn't?
Oh my, I was trying to think about that as we were just talking. I don't know if there's anything we missed in particular. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have a current exciting thing that I find myself going through cycles of things where I'll get very excited about. I was really into cold plunges for a while. I still think they're great.
Yeah.
I'm just a little less psychotic about them than I used to be.
That's good.
Because you can get psychotic about these things, and then, oh, hey, I'm going to get, I don't know. I try to stay ahead of, I try out the next program of different things, and test pilot it for, for our members and stuff like that. So I'm always kind of playing around with different things. Anything that's currently that you're enjoying that you think might be the next new thing. If somebody told me that rucking was going to be a thing 4 years ago, I've been like, walking with a backpack, that seems a little bit lame.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything on your radar?
I don't think anything like that. I do think, which we're already seeing, I think you're going to see the pendulum continue to shift back toward functional style bodybuilding and back toward traditional resistance training with, aerobic conditioning mixed into it. I think it's going to continue to shift that way. I'll be really interested to see what happens with high rocks and the development of that, and the surging popularity of that, and how that impacts the CrossFit Games, which will ultimately impact CrossFit as a training methodology. I was joking with one of our clients who used to do CrossFit, used to own a gym, and now does her own thing and follows our program. And we were kind of joking, but also serious of, if High Rocks is able to take the spot as sort of the pinnacle of fitness sports, and the CrossFit Games sort of dissolve, that could actually be best case scenario for CrossFit, the training methodology. It could get back to what it was in 2003, 4, 5, 6, 9. And a lot of people could get really fit and have a good time, not have to do strength metcon every day and get the shit kicked out of themselves. So that'd be kind of cool. I'm not wishing CrossFit to go out of business or anything like that, HQ, but it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. And then from our standpoint, nothing, we're not reinventing the wheel or anything like that. No new programs on the horizon. I was doing this one thing for a while that I thought could potentially be a program where right after our second was born, I was just, hanging on by a thread. And I said, okay, I'm going to, because I had no motivation to train, I'm going to just go out. I'm not even going to warm up. I'm just going to pick one movement, and I'm going to do 10 sets of 10 or whatever rep scheme. It was always 10 sets though. And so I'm going to do 10 sets on a 2-minute clock, and I'll use the first 2 sets as my warm up, and then I'll just progressively increase or do whatever scheme I thought sounded good for the day. And I'll just pick one movement a day for the week, and that's what I'm going to do. And so it was only 20 minutes out in the garage. Yeah. And for about 3 weeks, I was obsessed. I was like, you know what? Like, this is the ticket right here, because the research is showing 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week is hypertrophy. I'm getting lots of mechanical strain and time under tension because of the tempo I'm putting on the reps. If I need to, I can increase the reps and get metabolic stress. The only thing I'm not getting is like cardiorespiratory work. I'll walk 15,000 steps a day if I have to, or I'll put a weight vest on every time I walk. And I started writing a program for that. And then I thought, okay, I think this is just a phase that I'm in. It's kind of like, I think this is like punk rock in the early 2000s. Like, it seems awesome and it's going to die out. I don't think I should push this, but maybe one day.
I can't remember. Oh my gosh, where did I hear it? I can't remember if it was a Rob Orlando thing back in the day with his strongman stuff, or for some reason, like Dan John Pavel is in my head, but maybe I'm losing my mind. But they had the cold bar. And so they put like 225 on just on a barbell, and it just sat in the corner of the gym. And every time you walked by it, you did 1 rep. Mm-hmm. And so, and the next day you added 5 pounds. and it was 230 then. Every time you walked by, you did 1 rep. It's a deadlift. I won't say you don't have to warm up for a deadlift, but it's not like you need massive, Kelly Surratt mobility drills forever in which to, make sure you have the mobility to, drop down to pick up a bar that's 9 inches off the ground. But then it just progressed every day, 235, 240, 245, 250. And I think it was Rob Orlando. At the end of it, Rob was deadlifting like something stupid, like just like that little, like grease the groove type thing going on. So that's where my mind went when you said that. Like that's,
yeah. Definitely. I mean,
honestly,
it could work, right? It has.
I think it's a genius program for you in that situation. Like that's perfect. You're hanging on by a thread, for you to go out and try to do Helen. Like, no, you like, oh my God. Like,
yeah,
you're doing pull-ups and you're coming down a little extra hard. And that's where a shoulder goes, or, you're out on the run and not paying, and you, whatever, hit a curb goofy or, whatever, something like that versus something a little bit more structured, less moving pieces. No, dude, I think that's a great program for, I don't know if, post baby dad program,
There you go. There's not enough of those out there. So we'll add one more to the mix, but yeah, I mean,
way to be niche.
I got that idea because, and this is where really the whole concept of the interval-based strength conditioning that we do came from, is when I was a strength coach at Pitt. We were, you're there for anyone who's not familiar, as a D1 strength coach, you basically are you're at the mercy of the sport coach, right? Of the athletic coach. So if they want their team to be in there 4 days a week, you're making it happen as long as it works with the schedule. If they want you to come to the field or to the pool to like watch their athletes, you're doing it. And so you're working a lot more than just in the weight room, and you're there already for 12 hours a day. And so the staff and I were like, well, we all need to keep training. Like, we still got to look fit. And the head coach at the time was like, here, we're going to do this. I used to do this with the staff down wherever he came from previously. And he set a 60-minute clock. And he was like, okay, for the next hour, every minute, we're going to do a set. And he's like, and he would change the reps every time, but he would say every minute for the next 60 minutes, we're doing a set. And he would do 10 sets of each exercise. So we would do 6 exercises, and it would be different every time. Sometimes it was just chest. Sometimes it was full body. Sometimes it was, a classic split of, chest and back, whatever. And I remember I did it the first time and I couldn't move the next day. I was just, and that was after 7 years of CrossFit. Like I felt like I was pretty fit, like I could handle a lot of volume, and I was just destroyed. And I thought, wow, like this is fucking insane. And but we did it that way for a long time, and then never did it again once we all went different separate ways. And then when I started training and building Ballistic, I was like, oh, you know what, like maybe we should call this like on the minute training, or like OTM, like fitness or something like that. And then I thought, well, we don't have to call it that, we can just use this format. And so I started experimenting, going back to his original 1 minute interval. And I quickly realized, okay, 1 minute is too fast. like we're not like, that's not enough time to recover. You can't sustain the performance. It's too much volume. And so that's when we started playing with, okay, what can we do in 2 minutes? What can we do in 3? Should we start doing odd intervals like 230, 330? And should we go all the way up to 5, depending on the stimulus? And that's really where all that came from. But yeah, you just do what you got to do when time is limited and stress is high. You just figure out a way.
What I completely thought of there is that one of my favorite, and again, being this early adopter of CrossFit football and specifically power athlete, one of the Field Strong, one of my favorite programs or favorite workouts, I guess, that they run is like during these little like recovery weeks and stuff like that, reload weeks and stuff like that. John will program similar to what you said there, but basically 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 6 movements, 5 rounds. So similar idea, but basically you're working for 30 seconds, but you get that 30 seconds to get to the next thing and get set. But it's typically loaded relatively, I don't want to say aggressively, but not light. Mm-hmm. And so like, it's a great little like, hey, I'm trying to, shake the rust off, like getting back into it, or even like, hey, as I transition cycles here or something like that. But I love little stuff like that. I think that stuff is fantastic. And yeah, an hour though, I'm good with a half hour.
It was incredibly aggressive, but I was at the time I was only 26 or 7, so I was young. The oldest strength coach there, I think, was only 33 or 35. So everyone was kind of at that age where we still wanted to. We all thought we were the young bucks still and could handle it, which I guess I kind of was. But yeah, it was nuts. And that we're talking about intervals. I guess this popped into my head. I just had this conversation with another client. We were talking about. We recently made a post on Instagram and it blew up. It's like well over 1 million views. And so we're getting all kinds of comments from CrossFitters who strongly disagree and want their opinion to be known. And
There's that 49% we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's a strong 49. It might be the other way. This might be 51, but, and of course, they're all very well educated and they feel that they need to express their opinion, but we were talking that they so strongly disagree
because it's the internet. They feel like they need to express their opinion.
They disagree so strongly and want to argue against our methods. And what we got into was, if you go back and read the level 1, actually, it's not the level 1. It's the original What is Fitness article from Greg Glassman in 2003. And I think it's included in this section's included in the level 1 too. If you go back and read that, there is an entire section about interval training, right? Where they dive into all the specifics and the physiology behind it. And then they actually prescribe you the number of, intervals based on the stimulus, as well as the work to rest ratio. And there's one other factor in there, I forget. But I just found it so interesting that when I was going back to read through all this for a post we were writing, I thought, holy cow, isn't it insane how what we do now is considered is not CrossFit. But interval training used to be this tenet of CrossFit. And now you're lucky if you see any kind of interval style training in a program that's, of that world. And it, just over time, how something that was intended to be there has progressively been removed and how the programs have changed over time. And I just thought, I started laughing because I'm thinking, we're doing something that y'all are supposed to still be doing. And it works. And, even your founding father, Greg Glassman, said that it worked. So it's interesting how things can get out of hand and evolve beyond what they were initially intended to be.
Gosh. Okay. Derrick, you got me worked up now. So I started off my little CrossFit journey where the best athlete I've ever coached, Bailey Murphy, phenomenal pole vaulter for me. She went to Duke, did multi events there, pole vaulted, 4x1, basically drove the bus. Like she just absolute stud. She was doing pole vault, or she was doing CrossFit at CrossFit Rockford, but kind of like hit and miss kind of there. Her mom was there, her stepdad trained there and whatnot. And my little thank you present from Bailey's mom to me for training her, for vaulting was like, hey, come train with Dan for a summer and just see what you think. Cause I was integrating some of this stuff and it wasn't like, dude, I have an elementary ed degree. Like I don't have a kinesiology degree. Like, we finally got our track kids to squat to parallel, like squat deep. And we're like, oh, wait a minute, there might be something here. Look at this. Versus before that, we weren't. We didn't really have a standard, and we didn't prioritize it the way we should have. But when I started there, and the point of me telling this is that we've adopted that this year. I think what has screwed up the CrossFit model is similar to what you're talking about, is when everything went to classes and, hey, we're gonna start on this time and everybody's doing this warm up and everybody's doing the strength and then we're all going to 3, 2, 1 go it, and now we're racing. How often do we race? Every day we're racing. And I think that's like, if you go back to the early Glassman stuff, like it's not what he did. You got after it maybe once or twice a week. You had some type of, triplet, couplet that maybe beat you up a little bit. But other than that, it was like, and I don't know if I totally agree with this, but you come in and you 5 sets of 5 on the back squat and go home. I might argue you could do more than just that, but like, it's not in the way of beating the crap out of yourself. But the second you went, I think so much of us, and we did this too. We did classes, and now at this point, we don't really have the class thing anymore. We have like training blocks. And if you come between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., like, if you come at 5:30, you'll be done at 6:30. If you come at 5:15, you'll be done at 6:15. If you and Ashley show up at 5:30 together, you guys can work out together. Like that's great. Like, we don't want to take away that community piece, of the deal. But like, what I don't want to do is 3, 2, 1 go, crank the music up so nobody can hear anybody, coaches can't coach. You can't hear a coach if you're doing a bad kettlebell swing or something like that, because we're fighting through it. Like, that's not necessarily what it should be, and that's not what, in my opinion, Glassman intended back in the day. And so I don't know. I'm. It was kind of a ballsy thing that we did, and I don't know. We lost a couple people out of it because, I don't know, they really like the class thing, and it still exists. We're still playing music. We're still coaching. Like, you could still, I don't know. It's just an interesting thing, but like, I feel so much better about, like, hey, these are really training sessions now, as opposed to this is a class, and class, ends with this, this Metcon that's gonna, make you bleed out your hair, and here we go. Sorry, you got me worked up there. I was just about to shut down the podcast, Derrick, and then you just
well, I
got
think
me worked up.
if we don't have to shut it down yet, I'll elaborate a little more.
You go.
I think, in addition to, where people get that competition and then they want to continue to race, and to your point, I think a lot of what happens too with this is, as you were talking about classes, it made me think. So every time I took over an affiliate, because I managed several, it was always a battle to incorporate what you actually mentioned of the original CrossFit prescription, which, if I can condense it, is essentially go heavy once a week, go long once a week, go super short once a week, and then have really 2 days, maybe 3, of like those 12 to 15 minute couplets and triplets, right? And that was really, if you go back and analyze, because I've done this, and my mentor, he's the man, John Main, he was a boss, and he made me go back and analyze. I don't know if he made me, but he highly encouraged me to go back and look at programming from 2003, and I think it was all the way through like 2005 on .com. So imagine going that far back, how shitty the website was back then, and then having to just click through all these workouts. And I will never forget this. I had a giant roll of paper, and I rolled it across, and I just started writing everything down. And I wrote down a year's worth of this .com programming. And then I went through and did the classic, like, how many times did they do gymnastics? How many times did they squat? How many times were they sub 5 minutes? And what came out of that is nothing of what it looks like now. And obviously there's going to be evolution within any training methodology, but typically you want that evolution to be beneficial to the individuals who are engaging in the program. And I think we're sort of skewing I think CrossFit is sort of skewing the opposite way, and it's probably not intentional. But so I think that's a huge factor in it, is it's shifted away from the original, like you had said. And then in addition to that, it's the competition, like you said, always trying to race the clock, always trying to do the next thing, be the fastest, be the strongest, be the fittest. And that's what's gotten folks into like the exact area that we're targeting now of, hey, if that's no longer conducive, try to come and do this, and hopefully we can help you out. And again, if you love CrossFit, continue to go at it. Like, we're not the program for you if you still love the traditional 3-2-1 go. We're here to provide more structure, more guidance. And if you're working with us one-on-one, like, it's legitimately 24/7. So we're there to actually coach you through the entire process. But yeah, if it's your thing, it's your thing. Keep going. I'd rather, if Pilates is your thing, keep going. I really don't give a shit if you're active. It's just a matter of, CrossFitters tend to have that become their identity. And when you start to insult someone's identity, they like to come after you, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Sorry, I don't want to mean, we said something like 7 minutes ago on this. Have you done any of the high rocks competition stuff?
So I have not. No, I haven't done it. I've watched plenty of it and read into it because I wanted to see what it was all about, and kind of, I feel like anything in the industry that pops up, if you're in the industry, you should have somewhat of a pulse on it. And to your point, a while back, one of those things is like any kind of semi-glutide, like Ozempic, all the other variations of that, like whether it's that or whether it's high rocks, like if you're in this industry, you should have a little bit of knowledge of both of those things, or across that entire spectrum.
Yeah. Very opposite things, but yes.
Yeah, but yeah, complete opposites, right?
For people who might not know, and honestly, I've just seen bits of things. Can you give an example of, I know there's a boatload of, there's rowing and running and sled pushing and I think wall balls and like there's a plethora of different, can you give a example of a?
Yeah. And I won't get this verbatim because I don't know it enough. I don't research enough, but essentially if someone's not familiar with high rocks and the difference between high rocks and CrossFit, because I think that's what we're getting at here, right? Is high rocks is the exact same thing every single time. So it's a consistent race, no matter what venue it's at, no matter what level it's at, whether you're a beginner or a professional, it's the same race. And they're starting out, and I don't remember the exact order, but there is running, there's ski erg, burpee, broad jumps, sled push, wall ball is the final move, and I know that. I'm trying to think of everything else in between. I think there's a farmer carry in there. Um, I don't know if you know for sure, but you can correct me. Is there 11 events? Is that what it is?
That sounds right.
I haven't looked at it in a while. So someone's probably listening and be like, these guys are idiots. But yeah, I think it's 11 or something like that.
That seems like right. Well, do you know approximately how long does it take to complete?
Ooh, that I don't know. I've watched a couple races, like just the highlights on YouTube, and I can't remember. It's significantly longer than like any kind of CrossFit event, or the typical CrossFit event. But yeah, someone can look it up and figure it out for us, or I'll probably look it up after this because now I'm going to be curious.
I think if you're going to race fitness, I like the idea of to race running, to race an erg, row, ski, whatever. I don't know if you really race the carry because I'm pretty sure they're heavy enough where it's not like you're running with them. You're walking quickly with something that's pretty stinking heavy. I like these movements too. I'm not thrilled with the wall ball thing, but whatever. They could do worse there, in that realm. But like, if you're going to race, because I struggle with racing fitness, like that's an issue. That's kind of what CrossFit ends up being. We're trying to do it really fast. Like, sometimes slower is better. Sometimes time under tension is better. Sometimes, but like with the movements that they picked, these are good movements in which to, if you want to go quick, go quick. So I think it's a neat thing if somebody's looking to, compete in a, I don't want to say healthily manner, but maybe that's it. Maybe that's the next, instead of going out and running 5Ks or stuff like that, maybe that's, that's not typical. I'm very curious to see where they go. I also, if I read correctly, they partnered with F45 or something like that.
Yeah, which is really confusing, right? Like Stu did a video on this. I'm assuming it's just because of the mixed modal aspect and then also the number of locations that F45 has. But yeah, I mean, to echo what Stu said, it really doesn't make sense in terms of how do you train high rocks in one of those facilities that I think their square footage is less than 3,000. So
yeah,
I think it's like half of that.
Small.
So I don't understand how they're going to do that, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see which direction they go. I mean, we've already had a few elite CrossFitters that have left and decided to pursue that. And a lot of the OCR people who that was their bread and butter are now like Hunter McIntyre. They're now over in the world of high rocks. And so I think it'll definitely get competitive. And to your point of entertainment or racing, I think they have the entertainment factor down a little more than what the CrossFit games do, only because the CrossFit games are trying to test as many modalities and stimulus as possible, whereas high rocks is a set stimulus. But I had said to someone the other day when they announced the 1,000 step ups for time, Chad, as one of the events at the games, I said, look, I understand it's a hero workout and I have nothing bad to say about hero workouts. I think they're great, but no one in their right mind wants to watch 1,000 step ups for time. The athletes are going to hate it. No one's going to enjoy watching. It's just like the marathon row or half marathon row, whatever it was. Yeah. No one wants to watch that. And so the more you continue to try to branch into more modalities and different types of stimuli and just making the test harder, the less entertainment factor you're going to have, and the more you're going to start getting into things like that where I'd rather turn on high rocks and watch someone go fast.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes and what happens for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Derrick, I really appreciate your time.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate
people want to find out more about Ballistic Performance. Where do they go? Where do they see?
A little less enunciation. I liked it. It almost blended right in there. So main place you can find us is at ballistic.performance, and that's on Instagram. We also have our website, which is trainballistic.com. They're different because someone owns Ballistic Performance and they don't want to give it up. It's $5,000. I'm not spending $5,000 for a domain name. So you got to just keep them separate. Trainballistic.com or at ballistic.performance. We can help you out there and at least give you some entertainment, if nothing else.
Yeah. Well, dude, I really appreciate the conversation. I think within this fitness space, I think it gets so mucky with bro science, or, I don't know, people that just get a bee in their bonnet and like, this is the way to train, whatever it is. And I love people supporting, hey, anything health and fitness, that's great. But there are some people who are doing it in a way that I would not recommend. And then there are people like you who are doing it right, who have really thought through these things, who've done it, yourself, your whole family, Ashley being, fit and active and healthy, have kids, you want them to, be raised fit, active and healthy. I respect what you're doing. You're doing it right. You guys are doing great. So, no, thank you very much. And guys, if you're, obviously if you're in the Loves Park, Rockford area, you need to come here, but if you're not, you need to check out Ballistic Performance. So thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Listeners, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one. That's all we have for you today. If you have any questions or want to chat or interested in seeing what we're up to in between episodes, head over to Instagram and Facebook and follow @OakStrength. Also check us out at oakstrength.com. If you like this episode, please share it with someone who wants to live happy, healthy, and strong. If you really liked it, subscribe and review the Happy, Healthy, Strong podcast on iTunes or Spotify. Be sure to tune back in next week and remember to keep owning your health.